With the Rams season hanging by a thread, head coach Sean McVay says changes have to be made. What might those be? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Travis Rogers. Not only am I a host here at Locked On Rams, but I also host the Rams pregame, postgame, and halftime show on their flagship station, ESPN 710, right here in Los Angeles. Thanks for making us a part of what you do each and every day. Why don't you click that subscribe button in your podcast feed? You can also click the subscribe button on our Locked On Rams YouTube channel. That is another really good way to consume the pod. So whether you're in the car or you're at home and you want to, cook or whatever it is you do when you're listening to your pods, you got a couple of different ways that you can do it. Here's what I want to get into on today's pod. I want to talk about what Jalen Ramsey had to say about the offense after that absolute offensive debacle in Tampa over the weekend. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of minutes. I want to talk about the schedule and the very narrow, yet it does exist, path that the Rams could find themselves to get to 9 and maybe, cross your fingers and rabbit feet and everything else, potentially get to 10. Like I said, it's narrow, but I'll explain to you how it actually might go down. But let's start right here. Let's start with what Sean McVay had to say about his squad at the end of that Tampa game. But before we do that, let me remind you that today's Locked On Rams podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. And they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. So here is what Sean McVay had to say after the team got just a gut punch in Tampa, giving up a touchdown with 44 seconds to go, 60 yards after they couldn't get anything going offensively in the fourth quarter. Really couldn't get anything going offensively the entire game. We talked about that previously. There really have not been any moments in that game where like, oh, okay, they're cooking a little bit. They hit 2 big plays, and that was about it. The rest of it, they really didn't get anything done. And so after the defense had the day that they had, and the offense had the day that they had, Sean McVay said after, Jim, you could hear the frustration in his voice. You could sense that he was kind of at his wit's end with some of this. And he said, changes have to be made. Adjustments have to be made. We can't continue to go on like this. Sure. The sentiment I agree with that. What's the line? I think Cooper Kupp said this. It's something that we've heard, a million different places, a million different times. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, the Rams have been doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result. So, running it back again, you're going to get the same result. You're going to get an inept offensive performance. You're going to get a defense that's been pretty good, but not good enough to throw, a shutout or hold the opposition less than 10 points on a regular basis. So what do? Well, some of those changes that Sean McVay was hinting at, we've seen them take place over the last few hours. Terrell Burgess, gone. Kendall Blanton, gone. These are 2 guys that really had not been used very much this offseason. Terrell Burgess had really fallen out of favor over the course of this season and really towards the end of last season. They weren't using those guys. So they're down the road. But I think more than, okay, we're going to bring in this, we'll play Russ Yeast more. We're going to use, whoever the second string tight end might be. But that's not the point. The point is everybody needs to tighten up. Everybody needs to get better at what it is that they're being asked to do. And while Sean McVay is talking about changes that need to be made, and sure, within this framework of the team that you have, what changes are going to make a huge difference? You can talk about benching Bobby Evans, who's been playing left guard and not doing a particularly good job out of it. Chandler Brewer got the start last week. Maybe he'll get another one. Maybe you put Ode Abouche back in the starting lineup. And if they did do something along those lines and take Evans out of the starting lineup, that would make 9 different offensive lines in 9 games during the Rams seasons, which is just, it's a recipe to how to go 3-5. It's a recipe on how to have a season that goes up in smoke, to have the turnover on the O-line that they have had through this season. But beyond some of these things, I mean, you're talking about Burgess, who doesn't play much. You're talking about Blanton, who doesn't really play much. You're talking about a couple of guys that aren't really impactful players. You could make, Bobby Evans is a backup to a backup. You bench him. Okay. Who are you putting in? And this is the part where I think the Rams find themselves at a real crossroads. You can say you need challenge. You can say adjustments need to be made. And I agree with the philosophy of it all. But what can you actually do? You're still going to have Matthew Stafford. You're still going to have Matthew Cup or Cooper Kupp. You're still going to have Aaron Donald and Ramsey and Wagner and Robinson and all the stars that we've been talking about. But you still have all the other same guys too. It's not like you can snap your fingers and get a new offensive line. It's not like you snap your fingers and all of a sudden OBJ is back in the fold, which is something we'll talk about on tomorrow's Locked On Rams, because it feels more and more likely that he's going somewhere other than Los Angeles. It feels like that ship has sailed, unfortunately. You have what you have. And the other word that Sean McVay keeps using, other than changes need to be made, adjustments need to be made, something that you've heard him say repeatedly, is we need to execute better. Here, I'm going to take that out of coach speak and just put it in ways that somebody would talk to you or someone would talk to me. When a coach says our players need to execute the game plan better, it means they need to play better. We're putting them in a position where these plays should work. They're just not able to execute the game plan. They're not able, this guy block that guy. They're not able to do that. This person run this route and get open. They're not able to do it. This person put the ball on this guy's shoulder. They're not able to do it. The execution is, I don't have good enough players. The execution is, my good players aren't playing at a high enough level. Execution is, this guy can't block that guy. There's no scheming around it. We just got to find a way to get him better. Really hard to do. Really hard to do. I'm optimistic that Sean McVay is going to work his you-know-what off. I'm optimistic that he's going to look under every rock for every possible solution. The pessimistic part of my brain, though, is telling me there's nothing there. You have what you had. This isn't college. This isn't where you can trade a bunch of – these are the guys they got. The trade deadline is come and gone. There isn't a draft for another, nearly a year from now. This is what you have. This is what you have to play with. And they're going to have to execute. You can cut some guys around the fringe. You can take a guy out of the lineup, put another guy in. I don't know how much of this is going to change, regardless of what the actual changes may be. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about the remaining 9 games on that schedule. Can the Rams find 6 wins in their next 9 games? It's coming up next on Locked On Rams. This episode of Locked On Rams is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Have you had a chance to really kind of stop and think about when you get in those weird spots, when you kind of get fixated on some problems, where you start thinking about the things that just kind of throw your day off and how you get through them? Do you just think about the thing that happened over and over and over again? Or do you think about ways to move beyond that, ways to navigate that problem? And this is where therapy can really have a huge impact on it, right? Over 3 million people, I should say BetterHelp has helped over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, it's secure, and it's accessible because it's 100% online. The benefits of this are really remarkable. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel like a weight has been taken off of your shoulders. You're gonna be able to use the techniques that you get in therapy to help you solve the next problem that's right around the corner for you, because we all have them, right? We all have those things that we got to try to find a way to solve them, and therapy can help. So get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Let me give it to you one more time. BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so I'm not saying that I necessarily think that this is going to happen, but when you really stop and look at the schedule and what the Rams have in their last 9 games of the season, finding 6 wins on it is a challenge, but it's not impossible. And where they sit right now at 3-5, is not an indication that they're going to go 6-3 over their final 9 games. I understand that. I understand that they're going to have to play a lot better. So with the assumption that they can get a little bit better. If they don't get any better, this is all window dressing. It doesn't matter. If they don't get any better, they're going to finish 6-11, 5-12. That's where they're headed playing like this. They're just not playing good football. But if they can get the offense on track, and they don't have to go from what they've been to what they were a few years ago, but just go from where they are right now to a little bit better. And I think that there's a chance here, because here's what's on the schedule moving forward. 9 games left. I'm going to take one of those Seahawks games and put it in the loss column. I'm going to take the Kansas City game and put it in the loss column. That leaves 7 games left. You need to win 6 of them. Okay. Now, stick with me here for a second, because I think that it's maybe not as crazy as it may sound. It's crazy, but not as crazy as it may sound. Can they beat Arizona this weekend? Absolutely, they can. Yes, Arizona is, quite frankly, coming at the perfect time on the schedule. They need a game to boost their confidence. They need a game that's going to lead them to believe that they've got things figured out, and maybe it'll help, right? So Arizona's coming at the right time. They've got the Las Vegas Raiders up. They're bad. Okay, now I understand the Rams aren't very good either right now, but the Raiders are a 2-win team. I know the Rams are a 3-win team. I understand, but the Rams are probably a little bit better than the Raiders are right now. I'm going to take one of those Seattle games and give the Rams in a win column. Put one in the loss, one in the win. They're going to have to split one of those games. If they can find a way to exert their will on the Seahawks the way that they have previously. Again, the division is really interesting because the Rams can't beat San Francisco, and they're really rather successful against the other 2 teams in the division. Seattle isn't quite on the same level as Arizona, but it's close. So let's split those. Let's say that they get one of those games. They get Denver on Christmas. Denver stinks. I've watched Denver play a few times this year, and they can't score either. And I think that the Rams defense is probably on a par with the Denver defense. That Rams offense can get a little bit better. Maybe you grab one of those, okay? So there's 4 wins. You need 2 more out of this group. You need to win 2 of 3. Green Bay on Monday night, in Green Bay, in December, cold, maybe bad weather. New Orleans coming up in 2 weeks, right? They're the first morning game of the season for the Rams. They're in that 10 o'clock window. And then you got the LA Chargers. You got to win 2 of those 3. Chargers are all over the map. Who knows what team you're going to get on any given day with them. The Saints are struggling. The Saints are actually behind the Rams in the standings right now at 3-6. The Green Bay Packers are on a 5-game losing streak. That's not a good football team. In Lambeau Field in December with bad weather, it could be a big problem for anybody playing in that environment. But that's not a good team, okay? That's a team that you can beat. Like I said, all of these things together, unlikely. But when you take them individually, can you beat Seattle once? Yes. Can you beat Arizona, Las Vegas, and Denver? Yes. Can you find 2 wins in Green Bay, in New Orleans, and against the Chargers? That's the tricky part. You're going to have to steal one or both of those games in that 3-game window, because those teams are probably, they either have an advantage because it's in their own backyard, or they're just a better team than you are. We're just putting Kansas City in a loss column because they're going to lose to the Chiefs. And if they don't, great. Love to be wrong about that one. But this is where they are. They're not dead. They are, I use this analogy on my radio show. They're in the hospital. We've called the family, the brothers and the sisters and the grandchildren. Everybody's coming in because the patient is quite sick. The doctors have said you should probably get everybody that needs to be here. We've got a few days at least, but you should probably be getting ready. We've called the funeral parlor. We've decided that who's going to speak at some of these things, but the patient's not dead yet. And the doctor walks in and says, "Hey, I want to try one thing. I want to inject the Arizona Cardinals directly into their veins and see what happens." I'm not saying it's going to work. It probably won't. But if they do, and the fingers start to move and the eyes open and they recognize little Timmy and Tommy, right? I'm just saying it's not over till it's over. And if they lose to Arizona, we're going to pull it out of the plug and we're going to start picking out flowers. That's where the Rams are in their season right now. But they're not dead, not quite yet. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about Jalen Ramsey and what he said about the offense and Sean McVay's response to Jalen Ramsey's response. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. Now, word from our partner at PrizePicks, right? Have you done it yet? Have you played PrizePicks yet? If you haven't, you're missing out. It is an incredible amount of fun. It's a great way to play daily fantasy because you get to look at the projections and decide whether it's going to go above or below the projections. How about this, right? If I said to you, Cooper Kupp is going to catch 100 or more yards, more or less, right? You make a decision. If I said to you, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 2.5 touchdowns this week, you want to go more or less. That's what this is. That's what makes PrizePicks so much fun. This is why it's a little bit easier to win at some of these things. It's far less complicated. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you against the projections available. All the sports that you like are available. It's safe. It's fast to withdraw your money. Entries can be made in about 60 seconds or less. So download the PrizePicks app, or you can go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. And if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. All right, so Jalen Ramsey, after the game on Sunday, the loss to the Tampa Bay Bucks, did not mince words, did not pull any punches. He basically put it out there in very stark terms. And by the way, exceptionally accurate terms as well. What he said was, this is Jalen Ramsey, we have so many games where the defense will get a stop and we got to the sidelines and they're like, oh, yeah, you stay locked in. You got to stay locked in. You're all going to have to go out and do it there again. It shouldn't be like that. We got to have some dogs who are going to be like, we're going to close this blankety blank out. He went on to say, the defense should not have had to go back on the field. Simple. You got to have some dogs who are going to go get it. We shouldn't have to go to the sideline after a big stop like that and have our coaches or the other side or whoever telling us, we're going to need y'all one more time. We're going to need you one more time. Like, what the blankety blank? We just made a big stop, turnover on downs with a minute, some change left, and no timeouts for nobody. We got to have some dogs who are like, blank this blank. We all going to end this game right now. Good stop. We're going to go out there and get the game for y'all. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is exactly right. This is exactly what they need to get done. This is exactly what should have happened, right? Then when they got off that field on 4th and 7 or 4th and goal from the 7 and ball gets deflected in the air, that's the end of the game. Get one first down, pick up 10 yards, take a knee, get the you-know-what out of here, right? We're done. We win. We dodged a bullet. We played like you-know-what, but we won the game because our defense stepped up. It's not what happened. They couldn't get anything done. They did give the ball back to Tom Brady, and we know what happened after that. This is the part that is so frustrating as an athlete, right? And especially in a team sport like this. And I've heard, well, you shouldn't say, he's a human being. He's angry. He's frustrated. He's disappointed that he's had to go through what they're going through. They did do their job. It's okay to get mad. It's okay to be frustrated. Is it perfect? No. Is it real? Yeah. And he's angry, and he's angry at them. He's angry at the offense. He's angry at the guys that don't have dogs out there. I would be too. If you're anything like me watching the game on Sunday, you're thinking, dude, come on. We can't find one way to get this done. We're really going to ask the defense to do it again? That's what he was saying. I don't even think the offense will take any exception to it. What is it? No, it wasn't like that. Yes, it was. Sean McVay doubled back and said, look, I don't have a problem with it. Jalen's an emotional guy. He's right. And he would say the same thing if the defense was not pulling its end of the bargain. And it has been. This is fine. I actually think, is this going to crack the team in half? It's going to fracture it. No, if anything, I think it brings everybody together. We're doing our thing. We need you to do your thing too. We can't do it alone. We need you. We need you to come along on this ride with us because you're not. Matthew Stafford's a big, he's not going to have his feelings hurt. Cooper Kupp's not like, Jalen. No, these are adults. These are guys that make a lot of money, that play a very dangerous, competitive sport. They know they're not doing their job. But sometimes when somebody smacks you upside the head with a comment like that, it does make, you know what? Yeah, we got to get going. We need to do it. This isn't everything's going to be okay. Jalen Ramsey saying it's not okay. We can't do what we need to do. Everybody there at the point of the season where the margin of error has basically gone to zero. Like if we're being realistic. Their playoff hopes are 1 in 10, maybe less than that, maybe 1 in 15 or 20, but they're still there. They still have a shot, but it has to change. And if Jalen Ramsey calling some guys out makes it happen a little bit more likely, why not? Why not? I like it. I think that's what a leader does. And I'll never be upset with somebody for being emotional and saying what's on their mind and saying something that's true. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now, for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today pod, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.